Ladies, gentlemen, and spellcasters of all ages, there are plenty of different ways to play in Elden Ring Nightreign, depending on which flavor or brand of Souls combat you prefer. If you're someone who likes spells, or even just someone who is interested in getting into the more spell-focused characters instead of only playing melee or bows all the time, today is the day for you. There are 3 characters in the game that make good proper casters at this moment, being Duchess, who has super high intelligence, Revenant, who has super high faith, and then Recluse, who has super high int and faith, and her own special way of regenerating FP as well, but she pretty much has nothing outside of spells to get the job done as a compensation. That said, today is all about maximizing these 3 for the specific purpose of casting, and so today is a set of relic builds for those 3 characters with that function in mind, which for the most part results in just stacking loads and loads of FP maximum bonuses, so the 2 that don't have natural regen can consistently actually cast spells throughout a fight, and so Recluse just has less downtime grabbing affinities in between spells for the most part, and doesn't have to stop stuff like very consistently firing spells. Then working in as many good secondary effects past that for all the characters, like of course the Everdark relic, which is fantastic for all the characters in the game right now, especially as your allies will likely have them if you do multiplayer, and the more players in a party that has the relic effect, the better it tends to be over the course of a run. And ideally we'll also be using as many guaranteed or set relics as possible, meaning the ones that you can get without any doubt through either remembrances or one of the 2 shops. First up then, let's talk Duchess. I think the most underrated as a caster out of the 3, of course, because she can be a caster or she can be melee, and a lot of people just choose to focus purely on the melee. But in my mind, she is at her best when you are using both sides of her, specifically when you have a dagger in the right hand and a staff in the left hand, allowing you to have a real control of the battlefield and lots of options depending on what's in front of you. Or this exact setup I'm going to be showing you can also be used for an Ash of War spamming build, because most of what you're doing is just getting a bunch of FP and then a little bit of a way to regen some. This setup for Duchess then gets her a bunch of bonus FP for the sake of making her actually able to cast spells consistently, and for a reference of how effective this is, the run that I went to go on for footage of this in action, I ended up getting a Comet Azure staff, which is something that's usually pretty unsustainable on Duchess because it is known for being strong, sure, but very, very FP hungry. It eats through it super quickly, and well, I actually had enough FP to do some real blasting with it against bosses, which was honestly a lot of fun, and it's not something that Duchess can really do outside of having this type of setup that lets her have the amount of FP to use a spell like that. The main thing with this combo too is that one of the relics we'll be using has FP restored on successive attacks, and while the relic version of that effect is definitely small compared to the dormant power passive that you can get mid-expedition, it's better than having no FP restoration because Duchess can trigger it relatively easily through her melee attacks, or if you have an on-hit spell as well. And then if you get one of the proper passive dormant powers as well for during the run itself, you become very capable of regenerating your own FP mid-combat. One fun thing to note that will apply to all the builds is that the main source of FP regen available in the game is Starlight Shards, the consumable item. They are limited, of course, you have to find them to be able to use them, but you can pick up a good chunk of them if you visit a Sorcerer's Rise. You can buy as many as you want if there's a special merchant village on your map, and importantly, these restore a percentage of your FP, not a flat number. This means the larger your maximum FP, the bigger your bar, the more FP these will restore, and the more spells you'll be able to cast after using them. This makes them more reliable for the characters that don't have regular FP regen, especially for the Night Lord fight, which tends to be the longest fights in the game and the one that you save most of your Starlight Shards for. With anything less FP hungry than Comet Azure as a spell, you can very consistently cast in this setup without ever really running out of FP in the middle of a boss fight, and then again, even if you do, you can just attack the enemy with your daggers to build some FP back and continue firing off spells. This works great for the more FP efficient spells, like your Pebbles or Shattering Crystal as examples, and that said, the relics for Duchess specifically in this setup are the Guaranteed Sovereign Sigil Shop FP Restoration Relic, which is a max FP up with 3 or more staves equipped. This is really easy to achieve if you visit a fort, as these have staff racks up on the top in the map room, and these usually contain at least 2 staves, if not 3 staves, making it pretty consistent to activate this buff early if you have this effect on your relic. Then when active, this is a bonus 50 to your maximum FP, which is quite a chunky amount, being more than 50% of a bonus compared to your level 1 starting FP, and still a large chunk even at max level 2. Then we have max FP permanently increased after releasing a Sorcerer's Rise mechanism. This is quite simple. Completing a Sorcerer's Rise puzzle during an expedition from any player in the lobby will give you 18% increased maximum FP for the rest of the run. This effect does not stack from multiple relics, and we do have multiple of it in this setup because they are on 2 guaranteed relics, which is a bit sad of an inefficiency, FP, but it's worth noting if you find 2 Sorcerer's Rises in an expedition and solve both of them, you will get a second 18% bonus. If you get really lucky and have 3 rises, you can get another 18% bonus, and these all stack with each other because they're multiplicative bonuses, so the more rises you have in your expedition and the more rises that you do, the more this will stack to just absolutely absurd degrees. Then the third effect is just magic attack power up. That's not a massive deal, and don't feel like this locks you into specifically magic-based spells, but it's just a nice cherry on top if that's what you end up using. Then for our second relic on Duchess, another guaranteed one. This one is purchasable after defeating Everdark Noster, who is available right now if you haven't done him before, and it's called Dark Knight of the Wise. This gives you the straight up increased maximum FP effect, which is just plus 25 bonus maximum FP for the whole expedition from the start, which is a very solid chunk in its own right. Then it also has FP restoration on successive attacks, which again is not massive on the relic version of this effect, but some regen for your FP is better than having none, and we can trigger this relatively easily on Duchess because it can only be activated with either melee attacks or on hit spells, like Carrion Slicer, which is actually particularly good for Duchess. It counts as a hit spell, and if you find it, it of course works well with the fact that Duchess has great dodging animations too, which makes it very usable to do spells in melee range. Then the third effect here is the doubled up rise effect that doesn't stack because we have it on 2 separate relics. For your third relic then, this one will need to be RNG rolled because of how the slots work out, but your ideal choice is anything with the attack power permanently increased for each Evergaol prisoner defeated effect. Especially for as long as the general community is running with this, it's better to run it with them and do Evergaols together as well, rather than try to abandon it or try to do Evergaols without this effect, and all it takes is 3 Evergaols done within a run for this to be worth more than pretty much any other attack increase you can get from a singular relic effect, which is not an abnormal amount to do in a run by any means. Secondary priorities for that relic then are any sort of status application on your starting weapon, which would be great, especially something like poison, or if you can get a rot-based dagger, obviously not on your relic effect, but during the run, then you can apply these statuses that deal damage over time, and then focus on your spells. It's also worth noting that the setup works quite well for Ash of War spam as well if you find a better Ash of War than you do a good spell, as the main purpose that we're after is just a very large FP bar, and a way to regenerate at least some FP. And then of course Evergaol's in the third slot, which applies to anything in the game, including Ashes of War. Then second setup today is going to be for Revenant, as more the incantation focused caster, and this one can get incredibly potent as well, especially as this is pretty much the best way to build Revenant as a character if you're willing to rely a little bit on RNG to find a decent incantation on a sacred seal along the way. Of course, with Night Lords that are weak to fire, lightning, and holy within the roster, you can quite consistently get an at least decent incantation that the Night Lord is weak to along your journey. That said, again, the main purpose of this, generally speaking, is FP stacking, as Revenant is just really strong with incantations, but has a pretty limited FP bar and isn't anywhere close to as reliable in melee range as Duchess, as she doesn't have that easy dodge and secondary scaling stat for melee weapons, unless of course she happens to find a pure faith scaling melee weapon, which there are only 2 of in the entire game. That said, we are using a number of the same effects as the Duchess build, including increased maximum FP after doing a Sorcerer's Rise, and on this run here that I'm showing you, I had 3 Sorcerer's Rises spawn on the map, and our pathing took us through all 3 of them. That combined with my other FP bonuses, which honestly were very minimal FP dormant powers through the run, it was mostly from the relic effects, got me sitting at 451 max FP by level 15, which is a sort of insane amount for Revenant, and is the highest max FP that I've seen without like Grafted Blade Greatsword or just getting a ton of FP based dormant powers. And this was powerful to the point where I was able to just freely spam dragon incantations without much worry in most fights of running out of FP, which just sort of wrecked through a lot of boss fights throughout the whole expedition. And then of course the final boss of that expedition was Everdark Noster, and having an insanely large FP bar against a fire weak boss, I used Dragonfire on repeat. I had Starlight Shards as well, which meant that I just had more than enough POW to fully incantation my way through what is currently the, generally speaking, longest to kill Night Lord in the game, the one that has the most overall health you have to chew through. As for the specific relic effects in use on this one, we only have 1 guaranteed relic in this section, being again the Dark Knight of the Wise, the one that you have unlocked in the Sovereign Sigil shop after defeating Everdark Noster, who again is active currently if you haven't beaten him before, so this is up for grabs right now. This one has the increased maximum FP effect, which is 25 bonus max FP from the very start of each run. It has FP restoration on successive attacks, which Revenant can do both with their starting claws or if you find a melee weapon along the way, but this is more so just a bonus effect on this relic, as we want it more so for the 25 bonus max FP, and then the Sorcerer's Rise mechanism permanent FP boost, which again is is an extra 18% maximum FP increase per Sorcerer's Rise completed on each expedition. Then for your 2 remaining relics, both will have to be RNG for this character, but that also means you don't necessarily have to use all greens as your vessel. You can use this one, you can use the one that's 2 reds and a green instead, you can use the one that's 1 blue, 1 green, and then the colorless slot, which gives you a lot of variety. So hopefully with those extra options, you'll have the RNG relics in your collection that you're after here. That said, there are 2 main effects that you're looking for from your other 2 relics, which are max FP up with 3+ Sacred Seals equipped. As with Revenant, Sacred Seals are your main form of offense anyways, so carrying 3 of them is quite an easy thing to ask you to do. You can easily achieve this early by visiting any of the cathedrals or great churches or whatever you want to call them. There are also a couple of early camps that have guaranteed seals too, and these boxes always have either 2 or 3 seals inside of them, which combined with your starting relic is exactly what you need to get this bonus running consistently and early every time. The other main effect that you're after from relics is attack power permanently increased for each Everjail prisoner defeated. Like I said in the Duchess section, this relic is considered meta, which means that most people are using it, and for as long as most people are using it constantly in multiplayer, it just gets even better, because the way that this scales and the way that this works, if multiple people are running it, it's much better than if only one person's running it or only 2 people are running it, because it means that all of your goals are aligned, you're all trying to do the same thing, and you'll all get more value out of that effect as a result. Because I managed to get super lucky and have both of these effects on the same relic, which is not something that I want you guys to consider necessary for this build, I just put on a mostly dud 3rd relic here, honestly, so as not to make the footage look completely unattainable. The Everjail increase doesn't stack if you have multiple on different relics, so this relic is realistically only giving me stamina regen for allies and starting armament blood loss. So in your own setup, your main goal is to have Dark Knight of the Wise, then 1 RNG relic with max FP increase for having 3 seals, and 1 RNG relic with the Everjail attack increase effect, and they don't have to be the same one. Then finally today we've got Recluse, who is interesting for her own reasons as well. As the only one of this trio that can actually restore her own FP, for that reason alone, building a massive amount of FP is definitely not required to play her as a full spell main, but if you have to frequently stop using spells to gather affinity residues to actually regenerate your FP, that is time that you are losing that could be spent doing damage. So the more maximum FP you have, the more time you can spend blasting your powerful spells, and if you get some real FP chugger spells, you'll absolutely appreciate having that larger bar. That said, because Recluse basically only wants to use spells of various kinds, we aren't going to be having the relic that gives us FP on successive attacks. This means we're also losing that 25 bonus maximum FP permanent bonus, but we will be making up for that in other ways, like being able to create a constant Terra Magica circle for any magic damage spells we choose to use on her to be boosted by a massive amounts. One of my favorite things to find when building in this way and having this much FP on Recluse is Comet Azure. I did talk about it earlier with Duchess, but this is relatively common to find on purple rarity staves, and this is especially good on Recluse because every tick of Comet Azure itself works with the effect from her ultimate art. So if you plop down a Terra Magica circle from taking an affinity residue, then pop your ultimate art to put the effect on the boss in front of you, then start Comet Azuring from inside of Terra Magica, you are essentially FP positive, healing a massive amount, and doing a ton of consistent damage as long as the boss isn't moving. To the point where, if you can line up a really good Comet Azure with Recluse, you can absolutely wreck whatever is in front of you, and if you have a large enough FP bar, you can then do this even when you don't have your ultimate art up, for long enough to kill most bosses anyways. As for the relics on Recluse then, this first relic is a guaranteed shop purchase from the Sovereign Sigil shop, 50 bonus maximum FP with 3 or more staves equipped, fantastic for Recluse as she tends to lean towards staves anyways over Sacred Seals due to magic synergies, and again you can easily activate this effect by interacting with staff racks in the big fort locations you can often tackle early in any expedition. This relic also has the bonus maximum FP after completing a Sorcerer's Rise puzzle effect, so an extra bonus 18% maximum FP per Sorcerer's Rise that you complete on your expeditions as well. Then it also has magic attack power up just as a cherry on top if you end up using magic affinity spells anyways, which you often will prefer outside of Night Lord weaknesses specifically. For our second relic, we have the guaranteed remembrance relic Vestige of Night. This gives you a Terra Magica created every time that you collect an affinity residue, and this is just a big hefty magic damage increase that is very consistently easy to activate. Then magic attack power up +2 as an extra bonus on the relic as well, so we really do want to lean into magic damage specifically where we're able to. Then for our third relic, this is your RNG relic of the set, and for this your main goal is again the attack power permanently increased for each Everjail prisoner defeated. This is just too good to avoid for as long as people are using it together commonly. And if you don't happen to have that effect in the relic slot that's left, the second best choice would be maximum FP up with 3+ Sacred Seals equipped. This does mean if you are trying to activate this effect and the 3+ stabs version as well, you won't have any melee weapons, which makes it hard to revive your teammates, but this gives you just a massively even larger FP bar. It is another 50 bonus maximum FP, and while you generally will lean towards stabs, you do still have S scaling with Faith for incantations, so having seals are things that you can use in combat where they're relevant too, such as having incantations that have things on them that a Night Lord is weak to for specific weakness countering moments. That said, the bonus FP for 3 seals is a secondary effect to all of the other things that we've mentioned so far in my mind, as that should be more than enough maximum FP even without that effect, and the Everjail effect is much higher priority. The only reason I have both on is because I've got an RNG rolled relic that has both, but you will do incredibly well with the rest of the setup whether you have that bonus effect or not. That just about does it for today then, everyone. A full set of caster-specific relic builds for Elden Ring Nightreign, with a focus on talking about just how to get big, beefy, hefty FP bars on the 3 characters who care most about spells within the game, and of course building in some FP regen for the 2 characters that don't have that, and then just adding as much damage as we can around that too. I hope you've all enjoyed this then, and hopefully you get some good use out of these 3 build options as well if you choose to try them out for yourselves. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.